Welcome to the second day of the Food and Farm Festival. Now is the time to pick your favorite location that you'd like to go to. It's also the moment that we get to thank our sponsors. Several, you can see right here, many amazing sponsors have helped make this festival possible. So if you have a chance, give them a high five when you see them. If not, it's good to know that they're supporting us. So for the first event here this morning at this stage, we're going to be meeting up with the Alaska Conservation Districts. There are several conservation districts around the state. If you haven't heard of conservation districts, we are state entities. We work under the state of Alaska. We're quasi-state. Our employees are not state employees, but we have the regulations and all of the formalities of a state agency. We have districts here today that are going to be explaining to you what districts do and what our different projects are around the state. So as you can see, there's several different districts around the state. Some of these have got many staff, some have very few or almost none. Some of the area of the state is not covered by a district, but the state itself covers those areas. This is just state-led districts. You will hear throughout this weekend, I'm sure, about tribal conservation districts. That's a whole nother system that overlays this map as well. But you can see we have Alaska, Fairbanks, Homer, Kenai, Kenny Lake, Kodiak, Palmer, Salcha-Delta, and Wasilla are the ones that are going to be are present and active these days. And those are some of them that you're going to be hearing about. Oh, and Anchorage that you will be hearing about today. So for starters, we're going to start at the top of to the west. East, I guess. I'll get my directions straight at some point. We're going to start off at close to the top of the map with Delta Junction. And so I'd like to pass the mic over to Meghan, and she'll tell you what they're doing with their food and farm folks.
My name is Meghan Lene. I'm the agricultural specialist with the Salcha-Delta Soil and Water Conservation District in Delta Junction. I've been with the Delta District since 2008, and prior to that, I was employed with NRCS as a soil conservationist. My husband and I came to Delta in 2006, and we share a passion for the community. So much so that we've built our home and family there, and we enjoy our hunting and gardening lifestyle. Perfect. This is my family, my husband and my twin daughters, Maury and Charlie. So how are we making changes on the ground in Delta? In our agricultural community, our district board has set a large emphasis on noxious and invasive weed management, and I'm having trouble with my slides, thank you. Soil health and conservation, and nutrient and soil fertility management. These are the three concerns I'd like to highlight today and share how we're making changes on the ground. First and foremost is our goal to prevent and reduce the spread of noxious and invasive plants in our district. We have a number of them, but these are the ones that are most problematic in our agricultural community and agricultural products. Some of these are more problematic in perennial grass crops, others are more problematic in grain crops, while others could become a growing concern. What are we doing to address these concerns? We offer IPM planning and consulting services. Most of our customers are voluntary. However, we do respond to those who have been impacted by state regulatory enforcement and help them bring noxious weed levels down to a manageable level and achieve a marketable product. A recent example would be the high wild oat, hemp nettle, and wild buckwheat levels in barley and oats that were being delivered to the Alaska Farmers Co-op elevator at harvest. The high levels resulted in grain marketing concerns and barriers. Several farms were impacted, and as a result, it put our staff into IPM planning overdrive for the past 5 years. We scouted thousands of acres, documented weed species, and formulated control options. Chemical intervention was a major tool identified to bring levels down. Our staff worked closely with Cooperative Extension Service to identify herbicides and develop field-specific herbicide recommendations for each farm. Our staff closely monitored the fields and the progress that was achieved. We were successful at bringing down weed contamination levels on each of the farms. As shown here on the left is a field with over 90% wild oat cover that was suppressed to less than 1% wild oat cover after treatment, as shown here on the right. The herbicides formulated for wild oats were especially expensive, so we offered cost-share assistance on the approved herbicide products if an IPM plan was developed and followed under the guidance of our staff. Another way we've helped the community combat weed and seed contamination concerns is by investing in a series of seed cleaning equipment, which is managed by the Alaska Farmers Co-op. The most sophisticated piece being the color channel sorter, which can remove wild oats from barley and oat seed. This is a vital piece of equipment that allows our community to be a bit more independent with the exchange of local grain that meets a seed quality standard. Additionally, we have a dedicated staff doing right-of-way manual and chemical treatments to control problematic species like bird vetch. We've been successful with keeping species such as this suppressed along right-of-ways, which helps keep them out of our farm ground and away from our agricultural products. Our next resource goal is to improve soil health and soil conservation. Our district wants to ensure we have productive soil in Delta Junction for future generations. We seek to achieve this through a number of different services. Connecting our community by hosting a soil health field day is one example. This year, it was a gathering of local and state professionals and farmers. This event is a networking opportunity and also a way for us to connect our farmers with specialists like Kaylee Gash. Kaylee is participating with NRCS on a cover crop residue management study in Delta. We're relishing the state support we've received in recent years and definitely want to see people like Kaylee stick around to help us answer questions we have on our soil and improving soil health. In previous years at this event, we brought in soil health experts such as Jay Fuhr to share knowledge and do fun educational soil health activities, like this one, harvesting underwear from the soil. This was a much-loved demonstration our staff did through the cooperation of local farmers to show how different crop production management strategies influence the soil microbiology. Our district also established 15 permanent soil health monitoring locations that will be soil sampled annually and monitored for soil health indicators. Our monitoring locations were placed on a variety of crop management systems, and it is our hope that we can track trends on these systems over time. Our district also recognizes the value of no-till systems and hopes to expand and promote these sustainable production practices. Most recently, our district invested in a no-till drill, which will be making its way up the Alaska Highway in spring of 2024 and will be available for our cooperators to rent. Our last resource goal is to minimize nutrient loss through proper fertilizer and soil fertility management. This is a service that brings many new, enthusiastic farmers through our doors. We do this by offering a soil sampling program that analyzes the soil for residual nutrient content and other parameters. Our staff mails the collected soil samples to a certified lab for analysis. Once results are received, we develop a field-specific fertilizer recommendation for the garden or field. This service oftentimes results in sunny summer field visits and many happy customers with abundant crops and veggies. Our staff and board are very grateful for the opportunity to serve our district, and we look forward to what the future holds. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Now we're going to head a little further west and have Joni Scharfenberg from the Fairbanks district describe their projects.
I'm Joni, the district coordinator for Fairbanks Soil and Water. As you can see from our map, it's not just about Fairbanks. We cover a huge area. We go all the way up north, like to Eagle. Well, not all the way up north, but partially up to Eagle. We go out to Ruby. We meet down with the Salcha-Delta district. So we have a lot of area to cover. And I don't know if anybody explained about soil and water districts. They were established during the Dust Bowl years ago, and so that local areas could give advice about what is needed for their soil in particular. Since then, things have evolved so that it's about natural resources. So we work with private landowners to help them with any technical or educational needs they have about their natural resources. And you can see by our mission statement, let me try clicking. You try clicking. There we go. Those are the things we work with. It's a variety, and each soil and water district is a little different because that's how it was set up clear back in those Dust Bowl days. So that our area we should be the most familiar with, and ours will be much different than, say, Salcha-Delta, which is a huge farming area. Each district is different. And so we always remember agriculture, we're always working with soil, but we have some other priorities too. And we'll have a few slides and information about the other things that we do in the Fairbanks area district. Boing. Am I going backwards? Next. Okay, folks. There. We have an agricultural program. It's one of our biggest programs, the soil sample program, and individual landowners bring their soil samples in. We send them off to a lab, and then we give recommendations. Other part of our agricultural program is the Nenana-to-Chacket Agricultural Project. Last year, there were 24 parcels that our agricultural specialists had to write conservation plans for. I'm going to try again, folks. Our big public event is our annual tree and shrub sale to get trees planted in the area. And then, of course, like the other districts, a lot of districts do a lot of the same kind of programs. We do a lot of research demonstrations and offer technical assistance to those private landowners. You're all over here. I'm going to look this way. Not just agriculture, but we work particularly a lot with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service on riparian restoration, on salmon habitat within the Chena River, and again, that big agricultural area in Nenana. We have some riparian restoration projects out in North Pole. We work with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service a lot on those kinds of things, anything to do with salmon habitat improvement. Oops, keep going backwards, sorry. One of the other big programs we have is called Fairbanks Youth for Habitat, again with a sponsorship from U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. We have young people between the ages of 12 and 16 that actually get some on-the-ground experience with restoration, habitat restoration. They also do fish monitoring to see where the salmon are, and they learn careers. They go to different specialists and learn what they do in the natural resource areas. Now I'm going to defer because Scott is our leader on this. This is a big project we have with the state. And so Eric Johnson with the state is going to give you a little bit of information because Scott wasn't able to come because of the weather. Go for it.
So I got a specialty crop block grant for student conservation planning, and we've partnered, the Division of Agriculture has partnered with the Fairbanks District to do this project. There's a 100-acre parcel in the Nenana-to-Chacket ag project area that we had an auction for last year. We're going to have an auction next year, but we identified a 100-acre parcel that they did gas exploration on that has a 1,000-foot by 1,000-foot gravel pad. And I kind of wanted to keep that in public ownership, not sell it to a farmer quite yet. And then just, it'd be good infrastructure for the future, maybe a fire station or something. But in the meantime, we're using this 100-acre parcel as a sample plot of land for students to think about how they would farm it. They write a conservation plan, and Scott Faulkner has expanded it to include ideas on marketing, revenue streams, a lot of different things. But the idea is to get kids excited about, developing a farm and making them think about, how they're going to make money, how it's going to be sustainable into the future. And I'm hoping this project kind of builds a library of student conservation plans that, adult farmers who are brand new farmers to the area can kind of peruse this library of ideas and integrate it into their own plans and build on that. So that's what we're doing. Eventually, I would love to expand this from just Nenana Tolchakit to other soil and water conservation districts. If they've got a couple hundred acres somewhere of state land nearby, which I know they do, my idea is we would rotate from Nenana Tolchakit to 100 acres near Talkeetna, to 100 acres down in Homer, and then 100 acres or something up in Delta Junction. So as a student's going through high school, it's not the same plot of land for 4 years. They get to see something different, and how would they adjust their plans? If they said they wanted to do cattle in Nenana Tolchakit, is that what they would do in Talkeetna, or would they do something else? Anyway, that is the idea behind this project, and hopefully it moves forward and continues to evolve.
I want to add that back at our booth, Fairbanks Soil and Water Conservation District booth, there is your chance to kind of develop a farm. We have a contest going with a lot of great prizes from Craig Taylor, and we have these forms out there for you to fill out. It's a way to talk about what you would do with the farm for specialty crops, livestock, any kind of thing like that. So great prizes, fill it out, turn it in by the end of the day, and we're going to do a drawing. Clicker. And thank you, Eric, for filling in for Scott. So now I'm going to ask Liz to come up and talk about our new compost program.
My name is Liz, and I'm working on a composting grant we just got from the USDA starting this March, and it's running until March of 2025. And a big part of it is creating a feasibility study which will investigate the large-scale, long-term solutions for food waste reduction and diversion in the Fairbanks area. But along the way, while we're working on that feasibility study to present to the borough, we're doing a lot of outreach and interaction with the community. And some of that is our backyard composting program, where people who are interested in starting to compost at home can sign up and they can receive a composting unit, either a bin or a tumbler. And they just come to a 2-hour workshop where we explain to them how composting works, answer their questions, and then they get to take the bin home with them. We've done some community compost drop spots where people can drop off their browns and greens at a community garden. That's allowed us to use some space, and when the bins fill up, we'll compost it and return that compost back to the garden. We've done some free workshops on dog waste composting for mushers, some anaerobic fermentation for food waste. We're doing a vermicompost one later this winter for people to compost indoors while it's a little cold outside. We've done a lot of collaboration with local partners. We have a waste reduction week coming up in March, co-sponsored by Green Star. So that'll be working with local businesses and agencies to get people thinking about reducing their food waste, their recycling, electrical waste, water waste, anything like that. And we've done some work with other projects around Fairbanks Soil and Water, including our Youth for Habitat program. We had all the kids come out and sort a bunch of food waste we had donated and start some compost piles with it, which was super fun to watch. We're also doing a project with a local FFA chapter where they're learning about compost tea and making some that they can donate to community gardens in the community as well. It's just a lot of education and outreach right now as we get our feasibility study done and hopefully are able to make some longer term changes in the future.
Thanks, Liz. I'm going to go back. It seems like I missed a slide. That one, sorry. Melissa is in charge of our natural resource education, and this is one of our, the board has always emphasized natural resource education. It's one of their priorities. But Melissa is very much involved in this whole Food and Farm Festival, so she can't be here to talk about what we do. But if you go back to our booth, you'll see our hydroponics grow towers. We've had this big project called AFACT, Community Garden and Farmer Training. We have an after-school program in the Fairbanks North Starborough School District that teach about natural resources. Melissa is the statewide Alaska Ag in the Classroom leader. And I work as the statewide Project WET education leader. That's water education today. We do a lot of teacher education workshops and then a lot of outreach at community events like most of the districts do. And then we mentioned our Youth for Habitat program again, and we have a lot of resources and check out things for educators within our area, or we've sent some off too. So I'm sorry I missed that slide. And one of the major things we have in our area is a problem called Alodia, which has now been discovered, of course, all over the state. But one of our big programs is invasive weed control. So I'm going to have Aditi, who is in charge of all of that, come up and explain a little bit about that.
Hi, everyone. My name is Aditi Shenoy. I have a bit of a stuffed up, oh, sorry. I'm also a little taller than Joni. I'm just going to give an update on some of the things that we accomplished the invasive plant program this year. So just going back, so that's us doing an herbicide treatment in Chisholm Lake, which is near Salcha-Delta area, to eradicate Alodia in that lake. And so we have, since 2007 is when we first started to treat China's slough, which was the first infestation found in the area. And since then, through early detection surveys, we've found another 18 infestations, of which 10 are located on Eielson Air Force Base. So just to give you like a lay of the land, at the furthest west corner of that map where the Tanana River meets the Yukon, so the furthest west infestation is Manly Hot Springs Slough. And then we have another remote slough near Nenana, Tochaket Slough, which had Alodia. And then the rest of the infestations are all concentrated kind of along the road system between Fairbanks and Delta. So there's 19 in all. And those different colors indicate varying levels of numbers of years of treatments as well as percent reduction in Alodia. So we have 4 water bodies in all, 3 lakes and a slough where we've eliminated Alodia, so we haven't been able to find it with monitoring surveys. And then the other 15 water bodies are still being treated, and there's large reductions in Alodia, or there's still a lot of Alodia, especially in Eielson, and it'll require a few more years of treatment. So we still have a ways to go to actually eradicate it in all the known water bodies. And so alongside that, we're constantly doing as much early detection surveying as we can throughout the region. And in the past 2 years, we haven't detected any new infestations. So this year, we focused on floatplain ponds as well as popular recreational lakes between Fairbanks, and actually we went as far as close to the Canadian border this year. And we did a couple of lakes in Tetlin, several lakes near Delta Junction, lots of lakes near Fairbanks, because that's where most of the infestations are concentrated. And then we've also started visiting sloughs downstream of us in the Yukon. So this year we visited 4 communities near Galena and did surveys for Alodia and sloughs around there. And while we do surveys, we're also constantly doing outreach to community members in the different communities, trying to get more eyes on the ground so that we detect another infestation if it is out there, because it's likely. So let's see. So this year, we finally got a couple requests for weed-free gravel inspections. So this was with HC contractors. They needed 6 gravel pits, all in the Fairbanks area, Fairbanks and North Pole area, inspected for a federal highways project. And so I inspected 6 of their pits. And then the Nenana to Chacket area, which you've all heard about. We kind of started like an informal group of stakeholders meeting earlier this winter, just to try and prevent the spread of weeds further into the agricultural area as the road construction happens and subdivisions construction happens and all that. And DOT actually was pretty engaged and interested in participating in the program. And so I inspected pits belonging to, or managed by the City of Nenana, Doyon Limited, and DOT in that area. They have 6 or 7 pits and also lots of material sites. I ended up certifying only a few individual piles. There's lots of weeds all over there. So but that was a good start and a good education effort, I think. And we plan to continue working with that group to continue, trying to prevent the spread of weeds in that area. We also have had a few grants over the past couple of years for prunus control and surveys. And so Hazel, who's not here, is the one who leads these projects. And so she's done a great deal of surveying around Fairbanks, as well as along the sloughs where there's a lot of chokecherry infestations. She did quite a bit of control in Tanana Lakes recreation area. So that picture on the left shows one of our technicians from last season doing the easy eject injection method for chokecherry control, and it's working really well. We also did lots more surveys for chokecherry this year. And have been doing a bit of outreach to landowners. We have a lot more outreach, I think, to do, especially with nurseries. And as we develop a plan moving forward, Homer did a great job with the tree replacement program, and so we got to think of something we can do in our community. There's a lot of prunus in Fairbanks area, and it is spreading a lot. Like we find it in the understory and along sloughs and things. So this is something that we hope to continue working on next year. We also got some funding to do in early detection invasive plant surveys along some of the forestry roads in the Fairbanks area. So this map doesn't really show you very much, but those are Standard Creek and Cache Creek roads. They're pretty extensive with associated trail systems. And so we did systematic surveys along those 2 roads. And we should be getting some more funding from forestry next year to continue doing surveys along forestry roads in the area. And then finally, I've been working with Fish and Wildlife Service and the Cooperative Extension. We've collaborated on trying to start up the Cooperative Invasive Species Management Area for our region, and we initially called it used to be called the Fairbanks Cooperative Weed Management Area, and then we changed the name to Interior Alaska. And the most recent meeting we had, we decided we needed to encompass Northern Alaska, just based on the number of communities that we can potentially do work in. And so we're going with Northern Alaska SISMA. And so we've had a couple of meetings in the winter. And then in the spring, we hosted a invasive plant ID workshop, which was attended by agencies, that had technicians that were starting up that summer. And that photo is from the little field visit we did after the workshop to Tanana Lakes recreation area, just to get people some training on identifying weeds. And then we had a fall meeting just a few weeks ago, just to get a season update from everyone. And we'll be meeting soon to start drafting our strategic plan and all that. So it's nice that there's been some interest and involvement from all of the agencies in getting that started up. So yeah, that's all I have, I think. Yeah, thanks.
All right, now we're going to hear from Wasilla about the projects that they're doing.
Good morning. My name is Lisa Lundt. I am the acting district manager for the Wasilla Soil and Water Conservation District. What I'm going to introduce first is the biggest part of what our district is involved in with the Project Learning Tree. Our employee, Molly Gillespie, is the Project Learning Tree coordinator, and she could not be here today, but she did so kindly produce a video for us, and we're going to play that so we can get a report on what she has been involved in.
Hello, my name is Molly Gillespie. I'm an educator with the Wasilla Soil and Water Conservation District, and I'm here to present a little bit about conservation education with the Alaska Project Learning Tree program. Project Learning Tree is a national program, and it is brought to the state of Alaska through the Alaska Association of Conservation Districts in the Wasilla District, the Alaska Natural Resource and Outdoor Education Association, ANRO, and the Alaska Department of Natural Resources, Division of Forestry and Fire Protection. I'm the Alaska State Coordinator, and I can be reached at alaskaplt.molly@gmail.com. Project Learning Tree is an initiative of the Sustainable Forestry Initiative, SFI. And SF Sustainably Managed Forests. SFI's mission is to advance sustainability through forest-focused collaborations. And they do this with 4 pillars. There's standards, which are industry standards for products that come from sustainably managed forest. Conservation, which is a robust conservation program that invests in local communities, one of the 3rd pillars. And the 4th pillar is the education, which is the Project Learning Tree program. I bring this up because your agency or organization may benefit from what Sustainable Forestry Initiative has to offer and how they invest in local communities. So I do encourage you to look them up. Project Learning Tree's mission is to advance environmental literacy, stewardship, and career pathways using trees and forests as a window on the world. And we do this with 3 main pillars: professional development, curriculum materials, and a robust network of national and state partners. The national partners include the U.S. Forest Service, the BLM, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the North American Association for Environmental Education, Arbor Day Foundation, National Association of Conservation Districts, among other organizations and agencies. At the state level, again, we're brought to you by the Alaska Association of Conservation Districts, the Department of Natural Resources, Division of Forestry and Fire Protection, and ANRO. The local level, Project Learning Tree is brought to Alaskan educators through the Wasilla Soil and Water Conservation District, Alaska Geographic and Renewable Energy Alaska Project hosts various Project Learning Tree workshops. We have a new facilitator at the Matanuska Experimental Farm and Extension Service Center. The Anchorage Park Foundation and the Alaska Outdoor School both use Project Learning Tree in their programs. Project Learning Tree has a variety of curriculum materials that support conservation education. So if your organization or agency engages with youth, we can help. We have activity collections, such as Connecting for Health and Planet and Biodiversity Blitz, which invites learners to investigate the biodiversity in their local ecosystems. Trees and Me are activities for exploring nature with our very youngest children, ages 1 through 6. You can explore forest careers with a college and career prep and green jobs. And our flagship guide, Exploring Your Environment, is a K-8 activity guide that teachers in formal education settings can use, as well as non-formal educators and anyone that engages with youth will find a variety of activities to encourage students to get outside and connect with nature. There's activity guides for all ages. Some of our materials that support conservation education include student pages, such as this one from an activity about invasive species, Soil Builders describes the physical characteristics of various soils, and learners investigate soil organisms and determine their role in the ecosystem. We have forest facts sprinkled throughout our activity collections. We also have career corners that invite learners to learn more about careers in the conservation and forestry sector, such as forestry technician and soil scientists that are highlighted here. We also have many free activities. One is a collection called Learn About Forests. In this one, it's learning how to plant a tree properly and how to care for your tree and why that's important. You can visit www.plt.org for a host of free activities and resources. There's a forest literacy framework, which is a guide to teaching and learning about forests. Black Faces in Green Spaces, the Journeys of Black Professionals in Green Careers, is Project Learning Tree's newest resource that Sustainable Forestry Initiative partnered with Manners, which is Minorities in Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Related Sciences. Because we know that representation matters, and we wanted to highlight jobs in the forest and conservation sector for a group of people that have typically been left out of those careers. This highlights the journeys of 20 forest professionals. There's family activities that are both articles and activities laid out throughout our website. In this one, you can see how to start a classroom garden with minimal resources, or understanding how everything is connected and the benefits of native species to birds, insects, and trees. And Project Learning Tree also recently partnered with the American Bird Conservancy for their newest activity collection, Together for Birds, which is free until the end of 2023. If you provide education and outreach at your organization, I invite you to host a Project Learning Tree workshop, and please contact me to find out more about this. Here are just a few photos of hosting various Project Learning Tree workshops for adults. And in turn, those adults host children in their organizations, and we encourage everyone to do so to connect with the natural world. This is really how we grow tomorrow's conservation leaders. And I'll just end with a few fun pictures of students connecting with their natural world in various Alaskan ecosystems. So that's, in a nutshell, the Alaska Project Learning Tree program. I invite you to reach out to me to learn more or to find materials at www.plt.org. Thank you for your time.
Hey, not yet. We're not Palmer. Jeff wishes. So thank you to Molly so much for sharing with us her hard work in such a great program. If you go to the Wasilla Soil and Water Conservation District website, which is swcdwasilla.org, you can find links to newsletters of how basically Molly's work with Project Learning Tree has put Alaska in the national spotlight, and it also features a local Matanuska Valley teacher's implementation of these values and techniques in her class. So I have a few minutes left. I just see a lot of familiar faces out in the audience. Is there anyone here, though, who is not really familiar with what soil and water conservation districts do? I didn't think so. So Joni really glossed over a lot of what we do, but the thing is that I want to speak to everyone about, at least for the benefit of the people on Zoom. Wasilla is the fastest growing city in Alaska, yet participation in our soil and water conservation district is among the lowest in the state. Literally, the only two employees are myself and Molly. We need the help of the community. As a cooperator in the Wasilla Soil and Water Conservation District, we can offer to people, whether you have 100 acres or 1 acre, conservation plans, that education and connection with programs that can help you implement these conservation techniques in your own backyard, whether you're growing a small garden or whether you want to maintain your forest health. If you're tapping birch trees or growing peonies, there are so many resources that we can connect you with. And then the other thing that is important about being a cooperator, you have a voice in your community. You can serve on the board, you can guide and direct where our conservation district efforts are put in maintaining the conservation efforts, the health of the natural resources in our community, so that the urbanization, the growth doesn't get out of control, that we're still making sure that our resources, our salmon streams, our forests, our farmland are protected. So if you go to our website, once again, that's swcdwasilla.org, you can find a cooperator application, or you can contact me, contact our email, and find out more about becoming a cooperator. It's free, it's simple, and once again, it's a great way to make sure that we're all together taking care of our resources. Thank you so much for your time.
All right, now we're going to move next door to Palmer and hear from Jeff Smeenk.
I'd like to thank the conference organizers for putting my research up as the backdrop. That's fantastic. I was doing compost research at the university farm years ago, and that's my compost pile. So thank you very much. When I was putting together this talk yesterday evening, it kind of explains to me why I'm in so many calls and Zoom meetings. We actually have more multi-district projects than we do sole district projects. Next, oh, I guess I can control it. Maybe I can't control it. One of the first projects to talk about is the Barriers to Fish project. Tiffany will probably talk about it, and also Joni talked about it a bit. This is a project in collaboration with Fish and Wildlife Service. We use Fairbanks GIS person, Hazel, does the actual GIS work for us to identify which culverts to look at. She's looking at a series of maps to identify where streams cross roads, and wherever we see that, we either have a bridge or a drive-through. That one's up in Montana Creek. The road just drives through the creek. And then we send out the hunters to actually verify what does the situation that Hazel found in theory look like on the ground. So the next one down, we found a beautiful bridge, absolutely no obstruction to fish passage. And then we found one that had so much vegetation, it acted like a great fish strainer to keep fish out of the culverts. And then once we identify which culverts need the attention, Fish and Wildlife is having us coordinate getting a surveyor out there. And this one is one that we were working on earlier this week, Kings Lake. They're planning on replacing that culvert next spring, so we've got the surveyors out there this week identifying the spot. Another source of funds is doing integrated pest management on the utilities. Our partners here are Matanuska Electric Association. So in order to decrease the herbicide use, they've got our spraying their yards, mowing the vegetation inside the Eklutna gas station, and we go into the high energy portions and do backpack spraying there. There's a zero tolerance for weeds in the high energy zone because it negates their grounding mats. So we have to kill all the weeds inside the substations. we have a roadside weed mapping program that just finished up 2 months ago, where Division of Ag used forestry money to have us drive the parks, drive the Glen, drive Denali, basically mapping the roadsides for all of the weeds on Alaska's invasive weed species list, with the goal of adding this into Act Epic so we can develop control plans in the future to keep the invasive weeds from going into the backcountry. We also have a prunus detection program where we're not doing much killing, but we're going out, mapping, developing a database, and then forestry will mail out the flyers to say, hey, you've got an invasive tree in your yard, would you like the districts to do some level of control to take away it? You kind of have to get your eyes keyed in, because the apple is flowering at the same time the bird cherry is, and sometimes the mountain ash are also in sync. So they're all white flowers, so you have to kind of learn which flower you're looking at from the road. Another partnership we have is with Knik Tribal Conservation District, and they have the goal of raising potatoes for their membership and to meet some contract goals where they're working with USDA to mail potatoes into Southeast. So we use our interns and some of my equipment to help them to harvest their fields and manage their fields during the growing season. I think last year they harvested 21,000 pounds. So it's more than just a little garden. And then we participate in the statewide cover crop trial, and 23 crops that are being evaluated as their potential for local cover crops. We do this on Knik Tribal Conservation District land, so they partner with us. NRCS is funding it, and we're also working with the rest of the statewide group of conservation districts that are participating in that. We're also one of the native plant nurseries. I'm sure that Jessica will talk about this program a little bit more, but we are the Palmer site, and we collaborate with Anchorage, Clutton, and Knik Tribal Conservation Districts, Fish and Wildlife Service, Plant Material Center, J-Bear. We've got all kinds of partners in this project, and we're producing native plant transplants. Palmer also uses the intern that ConocoPhillips sponsors to host the Weed Smackdown. And this is in conjunction with the Garden Arts Festival, so we get their traffic to come to our event also. We have people going out and hand pulling weeds just to show them why the invasive weeds are important, and then have literature and collect the weeds. Palmer sponsors a community harvest day, and we use our ConocoPhillips intern for this project also. It's held at the Alaska State Fair Rabarchik Farm. So we grow potatoes during the growing season, and then we have a harvest day. And this year we had 350 people come and hand dig potatoes. Thank you. Questions?
All right. All right, now we're going to move south a little bit to Anchorage, our newest district. Jessica will tell you what they've got going on.
Good morning, I'm Jessica Sharp. I'm the district manager for the Anchorage Soil and Water Conservation District. And this conference marks our 2-year anniversary as being officially recognized as a conservation district. For about 10 years, there just wasn't a conservation district in Anchorage. And before then, they had a small district that was focused on very local projects, but not involved with anything collaborative or anything involving neighboring districts or things like that. So our goal with this conservation district is to really take a collaborative and science-based approach to addressing natural resource issues in our district. And we've already been working closely with our neighbors, including Palmer, Kinnick, Eklutna, Homer, Kenai, and hoping to work more with Tyonek in the future as well, to address things that cross boundaries, such as invasive species or native plant production. So we are the most urban district in Alaska. We have the majority of the people in the state within our boundaries. We go north to Eklutna and south to about Girdwood, Portage area. We include Eagle River, Chugiak, Girdwood, Bird Creek, and most of our area is in the Anchorage area. So our district boundaries actually line up with the municipality of Anchorage boundaries, which makes it pretty easy as far as mapping and things like that. So about 2.5 years ago, Jim Rankert was getting together with some different volunteers in Anchorage and trying to figure out how we can address some problems that were occurring in our community. One of those problems was the prunus, invasive chokecherry problem. And then we also have other concerns such as food security and a lack of support for urban agriculture here in Anchorage. And so he decided that he wanted to try and get some volunteers together to restart the conservation district to address some of these problems. And one of the people he talked to was Steve Gerlich, who's right there, and he's our board chairman, and he's been an amazing mentor as we've developed the conservation districts. We also have somewhere in the room Melody, who will be joining our board in January. He got the different volunteers together, and they were going to become our first board of supervisors. And some of the priorities that they were focusing on included invasive species management, urban tree planting and care, watershed health, and urban agriculture and food security for the Anchorage area. So it's been a bit of a whirlwind 2 years that we've had. Our district restarting coincided with a huge influx of federal money and federal interest in funding local conservation projects on the ground. When we got started in 2021, we had some help from AACD, which is our Alaska Association, to help fund some of the startup work that we were doing. And so they paid for my time on a very part-time basis to do some of the important work of getting the district going in the first place. Then in July of 2022, the board offered me the position of the district manager and became officially the manager of the district. We got our first grant in spring of 2022, and it was for urban agriculture planning. And shortly after that, we also got 2 other programs funded, our invasive species program and an MOU with Palmer to work on J-Bear collaboratively. In fall of 2022, we hired Hannah, and she is our invasive species program leader. Before working for us, she worked for Tim Stallard doing invasive plant treatments in Anchorage, and so she was an ideal candidate because she had seen on the ground where the invasive plants were and had experience working to control them. And she also comes with a really great scientific background and is knowledgeable in GIS, and she's just an amazing person to work with who's very intelligent, and she's been working extremely hard to get this program going successfully. So then in spring of 2023, I got a call from Amy Tippery with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and she was talking to me about how there's a lack of native plants for restoration in the state of Alaska, and how they were writing this grant for U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. I don't know if they call it a grant, some kind of initiative to begin funding native plant nurseries at soil and water conservation districts across the state. And I immediately jumped on this opportunity because that sounds awesome to me, and it fits our priorities. for restoration and for helping also just the people in Anchorage to do things in their own backyards. So this program has a very collaborative nature, and we work with Palmer, we work with Kinnick and Eklutna, and briefly with Wasilla. They may join us again, we'll see. But we put in some small pilot native plant nurseries and just started trying to grow native plants. I got as much going for the program as I could, and then I just didn't have the time, and we really needed to hire somebody, but we were waiting for the money to come in. So finally we just said, we can't wait for the money anymore, we need to hire somebody. And we hired Dana White, who's in the picture in the bottom right there, to lead the native plants program. And she has been working super hard, and she really had to hit the ground running. She was hired in May, when we already had plants growing at the Plant Materials Center. We already had partnerships in place, so it was a very whirlwind time of me introducing her to everybody and telling her what the job entailed and just having her run with it. These are some of our highlights from this first year. So basically this last summer was our first full field season with staff implementing projects on the ground. So we had Hannah with a seasonal technician, Ryan, helping her out. And they were out in the field all summer surveying invasive plants and doing treatments and coordinating weed pulls. And then we also had Dana in the field. She was only part-time because that was all the funding we had. So she was running around back and forth between the different native plant nurseries and growing native plants and learning and sharing information. And then I do some field work as well. I was running the urban agriculture program and helping do the work on J-Bear. So Hannah and her technician were able to survey 6,000 acres. They treated 58 acres for invasive plants. We grew over 3,000 native plants with assistance from the Plant Materials Center and our partners. And we started a soil testing program where we had 80 soil samples taken, and it was one sample per farm or garden. So we went to over 50 different locations and met people and had them sign up as cooperators and just spread the word about our program. We funded 5 garden workshops through an NACD grant in partnership with Anchor Gardens, who is awesome local resource with volunteers coordinating local workshops and other events. And we also convened 12 organizations to work on a invasive species management plan for the Anchorage area. And I just want to give out a big thanks to our volunteers. We wouldn't be where we are today without our volunteers. We have an amazing board of supervisors. We only have 4 right now, but we're going to get a 5th in January. They've worked super hard to get the district going successfully. They've written probably a dozen grants in partnership with me. And we also have a lot of people who just show up to help out when we need it. Like if we need people to help transplant native plants, people are there. If we need people to pull weeds, they show up. The picture in the middle there is at the Government Hill Commons, where they have an orchard, and that location is sponsoring our local native plants nursery. And they were very happy to share their space with us and share their volunteers with us. So just wanted to thank our volunteers. We have an amazing, I think our people are our biggest strength here in Anchorage, and working collaboratively with our partners. So thank you very much.
All right, now we're going to move down onto the peninsula, and Tiffany will talk about Kenai soil and water.
Good morning, everyone. I'm shorter than Kyra. I'm Tiffany Brand. I'm the manager for the Kenai Soil and Water Conservation District. I came on in May of 22, so about a year and a half now. I think the last time I was on stage, I had a graduation hat on, so I'm glad the second time is with a good down-to-earth group of people like you, no pun intended. So So on the Great Kenai Peninsula, we have two conservation districts. We have Kenai, which is more central, and we have Homer. And I think people think of the Kenai Peninsula as the 132 miles of the Sterling Highway. And we have our communities sprinkled every 10 to 20 miles. So that keeps us pretty connected. However, we also have our neighbor Seward hanging out over here, and then we have the rest of Ketchumuk Bay. But we're all connected in a lot of ways in our resources, in a lot of ways in our tourism, and just the way that we overlap. So the Kenai District has, what'd I do? Oh, okay. Has one full-time regular staff member, myself. We have 5 wonderful board members. Last year we were sitting at 2 lovely gentlemen that are still in the room today. And I spent a lot of last year going to Chamber of Commerce meetings, public organization meetings, and just being out in the public looking for more board members. And we thankfully got 3 great people with differing experiences and kind of positions in the community. So we're very thankful for that. The population we serve is around over 40,000, but like I said, the peninsula is scattered about the way that it is. And so we oftentimes serve some of the same people with Homer, which is part of something that I've learned over the last year and a half is how important it is to have conversation in conservation and for us to connect. And that's part of why I chose this photo, because I feel like us as conservation districts, at least in the Kenai area, we're sort of a bridge between public landowners and private citizens and all these other agencies, as well as their local municipalities and their boroughs. And we get to be sort of that middleman. And then I think also what I'm seeing happen is that we're bridging between each other. And I think that's important for us to continue to do, because we all have different resources, we all have different capacities, we all have different experiences. And so something I've enjoyed doing since my time here is connecting and learning from other districts and from even people that have been with the district before me, like some of my board members. So, I forgot what I was gonna say, next one. So I've lived on the Kenai Peninsula since '96. So I've watched us change and I've watched us grow. My predecessor, Heidi Che, I knew personally before I came on actually with the district. And so what I'm seeing in our area is that times are changing. And that what that means is times are changing in regards to the role that the conservation district plays in our area. Now, Homer might not be seeing the same thing. They might be seeing a little bit of it and maybe in different ways. But what I'm seeing is that we're having a shift. For several years, the focus was promoting and establishing farming and agriculture on the peninsula. My predecessor did a lot of great work in promoting local agriculture and local food systems, including help grow the local farmers markets. There are a lot of great organizations and clubs still in place, like the Farm Bureau, that help support those efforts and are carrying those forward. And it is still something that the Conservation District supports. We're active in all of the festivals. We're going to the farmers markets and checking on them. I attend many of their meetings and have been asked to speak at a few this winter. So we're staying connected with that and supporting them. What I'm seeing though is we've had a lot of change in our land ownership over the last short term of years. And by that I mean we have some large scale farms that are scaling down. We have some large scale farms that are being passed on to younger generations of farmers, sometimes a cooperation of farmers. And so our role is to support them in that. We also have some areas that at one point were used for agriculture that now are, those folks have moved on in life and it's being turned into a subdivision. And so that land that had one use at one point is now going to be used differently. And so part of our role there is working more closely with homeowners and private landowners. I am getting a lot of positive interest and questions from folks moving to our area that want to know, how can I, one, preserve the good habitat that's here, or how can I get this land that at one point back in the 80s or the 90s or the 70s was used in one way, how can I get it back to a natural habitat? Or how can I preserve what's here but still have a few fruit trees, you know? Those are some of the questions that we're getting. So really having that personal contact and us being available for the public to come to is important and part of where our focus is. And that plays over into working with the municipalities, mostly the city of Kenai and city of Soldotna, as well as the Kenai Peninsula Borough. A lot of our concentration in our area seems to be towards habitat preservation and habitat rehabilitation. There are a lot of programs that are going on with that. There's funding sources that different governing bodies are seeking right now and obtaining. And some of that has to do with public land, but it also carries over into private land. And they have been very welcome to have myself and our Conservation District Board work with them and voice to them what we see as needs, and they're wanting our input, which is a really positive thing. So, switch, okay. We have two projects that one was ongoing before I came on. One I took on last summer that do have to do with habitat, and these ones are specifically funded. We have two fish habitat related projects that I'll talk about. One is the fish passage barrier that Jeff was speaking of. I think he might have titled it a little different. It's affectionately called culvert hunting to us all. And there is the Fish and Wildlife Officer, Kyle Graham, that I get to work with directly down in Kenai. He's the one that gives me my priority list. We have discussions and look over maps, and then I go out on the ground. The second one is the Kenai River Rehabilitation Project. That's often been known in the past as the cost share program. And that's a program that utilizes Fish and Wildlife funds, federal funds, and state funds as well to do riverbank rehabilitation efforts. We're calling it rehabilitation now rather than restoration, because we acknowledge that we can't restore it back to what it was, but we can help rehabilitate it and preserve what's there and hope for the best for the future. So those are two projects. The fish barrier passage assessment culvert hunting project brought me all the way to Seward, one of our neighbors, as I sort of said, is just connected to us, and it needed work done, and so we went up there and did it. Did it in the spring before it got a little too crazy up there, and the pushki gets so overgrown you can kind of see some baby plants in here, but I tell you what, right after this, a couple weeks later, I went up, you couldn't even see some of these things. So we did several there and actually found a lot of issues. So we'll hope that something good will be done with that. Going back. I think just this season, I have done most of the boots on the ground for this project myself. I had a field assistant for a short period of time that had to go off to university. And she also managed our cover crop project because we were in a third year as we were rained out last year. But this is work that's really passionate to me, so I enjoy doing it. And it's brought us all the way down as far as Anchor Point. And the folks at Homer Soil and Water have been great at letting us know if, when I'm down there doing work, if I have questions or if I need a second hand. And then I'm usually excited to let them know, you know, what I found or ask them about areas, because we're all in the same neck of the woods in a sense. So the Kenai River Habitat Rehabilitation Program has been going on for several years. It has some changes that come about every year with it. This year, part of that is with funding in a way. And last year, we lost one of the program coordinators. And so this year, not quite as many sites were done, but a lot of contact was made with landowners and a lot of more awareness of the program was done. And that was largely from myself making sure to be on site and to talk about it at a lot of public functions. And so next year we should have a lot more sites that we will be doing. They did 5 new sites, 1 site amendment, and that site amendment was largely because of the heavy rain that we had last fall actually moved some of the structure, and we had to redo it this year. And that picture there is actually a picture of the site that we had to do an amendment on, and it's the workshop that we did last summer. There's a workshop held every spring, you could say, sometimes gets pushed into the beginning of summer depending on what weather does. This year when we did our workshop, we actually had dug out some ice chunks that were on the edge of the riverbank, and we were setting our willow branches on the ice that was left of the river to keep them cool while we did the project. So I get to have my office right in with our NRCS folks, which is wonderful, and they're very, very generous to the district. So this is a photo of, there was a spring festival at our local food bank, an important area to connect with, I think. And so I had a booth there and purchased a tent for us to be able to go to some of these things, and NRCS joined me on a very rainy and cold day, reaching out to the community. We did the same thing again at a Harvest Moon Festival, which is in the fall down there, and that, even though it was a rainy day, we had a great turnout. And so this is one way that we support one of our partners, and we'll continue to do things like that. Let's see. So what I found is the way that we're supporting this is direct by being in touch with local landowners and being a contact point for them, but that we're also playing a very supportive element, and that's through our governing organizations and our partnering organizations, whether it be NRCS or the Farm Bureau or working with the Borough Land Manager, which I'll be doing a lot of this coming winter for some projects that they have coming up. So the question, I forgot about this one. So here's sort of an example. All of our board members are volunteers. I had to get 3 new board members, like I mentioned earlier. And I want them to know they're appreciated. I think we all want them to know they're appreciated. And so I wanted to do something fun for that, and then also to connect us with our neighbor that we share the Kenai Peninsula with this year. So we had a little get together with the Homer Soil and Water Conservation District and some of their board members at one of the Kenai board members' lodges that they own on the Kasilof River. This was just last Saturday. We got together and had a good dinner made up of most all local food and product that we got to share and discuss, and it was a really fun time. So my question somewhat to anyone, whether you're on the Kenai Peninsula or not, is where do you see the Kenai District going? We have a vision, we have an idea of what our need is in the community nowadays. The thing is, where do we go in the limited capacity that we have now? We are needing to get to a point where we can expand, but until then, we are deciding where to focus our efforts in the capacity that we have right now. So, and I just attended the All Lands, All Hands meeting, so I already have some stuff on the books for winter, working with some of those different organizations in regards to forest health and fire prevention on the private landowner, because that's where we're playing the role of being that bridge. So we are open to input. I'm sorry I didn't think to put my contact information up there. So, but if you just Google us, you'll be able to find it, or we're on Facebook. So thank you, everybody.
So now we're going to jump down south and hear from Kodiak and Blythe and their projects down there.
Forgot to test drive this. I assume it's the one that's got the little arrow worn off of it so you can't see it. Yeah. Okay. I'm Blythe, as you said. Kodiak Soil and Water Conservation District. You've already heard about a lot of awesome work of other conservation districts. I'm going to give just a brief tour of who the Kodiak Soil and Water Conservation District is and some of what we do to make changes happen on the ground. Our mission is a mouthful: to provide education and leadership by coordinating and implementing programs for the conservation, use, and sustainable development of soil, water, and related resources. Our activities fall into the general categories noted here, but depend on grant funding for specific projects. The Kodiak Soil and Water Conservation District boundary is the same as the Kodiak Island Borough boundary. It does include some of the Alaska Peninsula, but so far the district has not conducted any activities over on that side of the strait. These are our current board members, and we have 4 part-time staff. Scott and Johnny's positions are up for election this year. Top left is Chris Flickinger, out pointing in his field. Top right, Melissa, Barbara, and myself accept a donation from the U.S. Coast Guard Spouses Association for the Kodiak Community Gardens. Lower right is Scott Arndt at a meet and greet with Alaska Division of Ag and NRCS folks. Scott is in person here in the room. I did not get a photo of Johnny. We were fortunate to have Morgan intern with us this year from St. Mary's University in Minnesota. She only needed 1 pillow to reach the clutch and came already trained to drive standard shift. That's her in the middle, reaching to pick reed canary grass seed heads in one of our invasive species control sites. If you come to Kodiak, you can find our office on Near Island in the Touch Tank building. Those are our lit windows to the left of the main door. The Soil and Water Conservation District office is in space leased by NRCS. NRCS does not have full-time staff on island, so we keep the office open for them and provide materials and local support to their clients. They recently printed the banner that is now on display in our hallway there. When we fly to remote sites, Kodiak has multiple air taxi operators and regular scheduled flights to 6 villages. That's what happens when you live on an archipelago surrounded by water. The district has a standard shift single cab pickup truck, I already mentioned. A major wish list item is a second vehicle, preferably an automatic drive with space for more seasonal crew. We also would like to get our 2 ATVs repaired or accessed. NRCS has 1 pickup truck on island, which we can use occasionally. I did not include a photo, but we also have a Connex box for storage on the local slaughterhouse co-op property. Because the Connex box is not heated, we cannot store our pesticide supplies there. So Cooperative Invasive Species Management Area Partner, the National Wildlife Refuge, provides for storage of shared pesticide supplies and equipment. I mentioned earlier that we rely on grant funding for all of our projects. We actually do collect a small fee per bed, which helps for management of the Kodiak Community Gardens. There are 24 4-foot by 12-foot beds with growers including Kodiak 4-H and other individuals and families. We have a NRCS service agreement for conservation technical assistance and are currently recruiting for a newly funded position to provide agricultural outreach, education, and assistance to our so-called urban or small farms and producers. That position will also start looking into native seed and plant production on Kodiak. We received Kodiak Island Borough funds for natural resource education. Those non-federal funds help match our other federal funding agreements. There is no UAF Cooperative Extension Service agent based on Kodiak, so our office provides copies of their publications at many public events and on a display rack in the hallway. We also provide pressure canner gauge testing for free. We have invasive species funding agreements this year from the Fish and Wildlife Service for early detection rapid response and a Copper River Watershed Project mini grant for terrestrial invasive plants. The refuge funded transportation to remote locations around the island, including private lands, and we'll be conducting invasive species control on the refuge this next year through a new funding agreement. We conduct invasive plant surveys, monitoring, and control projects throughout the archipelago and have permits and certified applicators for chemical control when our integrated pest management evaluations determine that that is the best management tool for a particular infestation. One awesome advantage of being a soil and water conservation district is that we can work with everyone. This year we controlled orange hawkweed on Alaska DOT, Kodiak Island Borough, and City of Kodiak properties. We assisted the refuge on Camp Island, which is mostly tribal corporation land. We controlled Bohemian knotweed on private properties, and oxeye daisy on Coast Guard, city, and state land, and creeping thistle on Coast Guard and our state airport. We applied chemical control to our only known location of meadow hawkweed, which is on Kodiak Island Borough right-of-way. And we worked with the refuge to control reed canary grass on Coast Guard property in the Buskin watershed. We assisted Shenoy tribe of Kodiak with their crayfish derbies, and along when Shenoy accepted the Kodiak Island Borough proclamation for Invasive Species Awareness Week. This is a food and farm festival, so I must point out that many of the invasive species we deal with will and do impact agriculture and subsistence foods. Kodiak now has the distinction of being the first in the state to report 2 snail species with potential to impact many of Alaska's agriculture producers. The photo in the lower right is the garden snail, our most recent discovery, brought in by an alert member of the public. This snail is just like the invasive slugs already here, may have hitched a ride in a potted plant, on a shipping container, or even on lawn furniture in a moving van. So keep your eyes open, and please report your finds. Outreach and education is, most of our funding agreements include outreach component. We partnered with the refuge for an invasive plant survey and outreach visits to remote sites along the west side of Kodiak Island, transportation provided by their marine vessel. That was fun for the crew to do. We participated in several events, including Comfish, Coast Guard Welcome Fair, Kodiak State Fair, and the Nuniak Camp in Old Harbor. Since we are talking food at this festival, I have to mention fish. Although we currently do not have an active culvert removal or replacement contract, or as NRCS says, the aquatic organism passages, we have 2 sites with bridge plans engineered and almost shovel ready. We have funding to help with planning, and we work with landowners and hope to complete a project or 2 in the next few years. We continue to monitor our previously installed culverts to ensure they are working as designed. This year, we did find an issue at one of our fish passage sites. A beaver moved in and built a dam which blocked the fish access that we had spent a lot of effort and dollars to provide. Beaver are not native to Kodiak, and our crew made it their mission to keep the site dam free. We did observe several coho salmon above the culvert last week. That was just a brief tour of some of what Kodiak Soil and Water Conservation District does to put boots on the ground in the Kodiak Archipelago. Please contact me if you want to learn more, or check out our updated website. One of my employees did an awesome job on that. Thank you.
All right, I am going to be wrapping up our presentations today with a little bit about the Homer Soil and Water Conservation District. My name is Kyra Wagner, and I am the district manager down in Homer. You have heard already so much about what the districts do, and a lot of the things that we do are similar to those projects. So I am going to say, Joni pointed out that I didn't do a very good job of describing what districts do and what our history is. I should have gone into a long spiel, but what I will sum it up as is that our board president always describes it this way: we are answering the unmet conservation challenges of the state of Alaska. So that means that we can do a great deal of amount of different things that we find are needed in our communities. At the Homer Soil Conservation District, we have these 4 programs: habitats and trails, invasive species, native plant propagation, food and agriculture. Very similar to what you've heard already, but I'll share some of our specifics. Mainly the amazing team that we have going on down there. Our habitat and trails team, we've got Devo and Matt and Marcia. We do different trail improvements with funding from Fish and Game on our 4-wheeler trails. We also have projects with the Natural Resource Conservation Service, a CIG grant to study putting on GPS cattle track ear tags on cattle to track their motions in a conservation area where they have a lease, and monitor their movements, so that's a fun one. We also do some stream bank restoration and other projects like that. We also have an invasive species program that's Abby and Patrick and Jen. There's a picture there of a weed pool they did recently this summer in Port Graham, as well as a green crab monitoring project that they did down in Ketchimak Bay there. So we also address many of the different invasive weeds, and we also do that collaboratively. Just like the other districts, we have a cooperative weed management, invasive species management area that we help coordinate on the Kenai Peninsula, working with multitudes of partners. We are just beginning to jump on the bandwagon with native plants, and so we are kind of spearheading a lot of the research as to what kind of native plants are wanted by the different agencies that are wanting to do rehabilitation projects, as well as how they grow and what kind would grow and what areas and parts of the state. So we're helping on that end, hiring personnel to help out with that right now. And we also have an ag program. This is, oh, I didn't introduce, that's Casey. This is Monica and Nicole. They are our ag program, our outreach coordinator, and then Monica is our ag program coordinator. We have several different programs and projects that we do with that. It's all outreach to landowners, helping them understand better ways to do agriculture and or conservation on their properties. So we have Know Your Lands talks, where we discuss things about conservation as well as agriculture, everything from planting new starts to orchard tours to managing your yard for wildlife. So all kinds of different things come out of this program. We also have a radio show program and lots of technical support for people who walk into our office, as well as a rather large and popular soils program where people bring in their soil and we give them the recommendations as to how to best improve their soils. So we wouldn't be able to do any of this without partners. You've been hearing a lot about partners, and we have a slew of them. A lot of that is funding, a lot of it is just help on the ground, and a lot of it is mission driven. They help us decide where we're gonna go, what we're gonna do, and what is the most important resource need in our area. So with that, I am going to wrap up with a huge thank you from the Homer Soil and Water Conservation District and all of the districts.